Gentlemen, welcome. We have 20 minutes to give some hopefully interesting insights into what makes hubs and ecosystems successful. Let's start with you, Easy. So you are from TechBikers, but what I really respect about you that you built this one building into very extremely successful ecosystem, Google Campus in London. How did it start?
Thank you. Very kind of you. I don't know if my mic works. Can you hear me? Okay, that's better. Thank you very much for the intro. Very kind of you. Great to be here. Bom dia. Campus was Google's first physical hub for startups. It's a 7-story building filled with startups. I don't know if you had a chance to visit, but it's essentially like a Disneyland for startups. And it actually started with a speech from Eric Schmidt, who said that in January or October of 2011, he said that Google will have an innovation center in London. At the time, we didn't know quite what it would look like, but soon after, we launched Campus as a physical hub, and we realized that physical space is very important for building and creating communities. So since then, Campus became part of the heart of Tech City, or the startup ecosystem in London. There's 55,000 registered members, over 200 startups working from there every day, about 1,000 events a year, and over 100,000 people coming through the doors for events. So it's really been an interesting journey.
So it's a building which has 100,000 people coming to it every year just for events.
Yeah.
It's amazing. This is the micro view of a ecosystem, ecosystem from a building's perspective. Carlos, you started Portugal Ventures, but you also had a head with the government to help develop an ecosystem. When you were there, what is your key success factor for developing an ecosystem from a country's perspective?
Mm-hmm. So good morning, everyone. Yeah, well, Portugal Ventures was one of the many initiatives launched in 2012 in the early days of entrepreneurship in Portugal, and it was clearly one of the first steps to solve one of the challenges, which is financing. But the programs at the time for developing this entrepreneurial spirit and this entrepreneurial motivation in Portugal were much broader, looking at education as key for the success of the future of entrepreneurship. How also we connect entrepreneurship and innovation, because I think those are very tightly connected. So, and the strategy at the time was as a foundation that the competitiveness of the country would increase with new startups that were based in innovation.
Yes.
So, and Portugal Ventures was one of the vehicles, together with other initiatives, now called Startup Voucher, but at the time was called Entrepreneurship Passport, to help entrepreneurs in a very early stage to have a grant in the early days to start testing their ideas in the ideation phase to develop their ideas. So, but basically now I'm more connected with Startup Braga and Invest Braga, which is an innovation hub, how we call it, in the north of Portugal, basically trying to help develop the national ecosystem of entrepreneurship by focusing on helping these startups and these entrepreneurs in areas where we think that we have a differentiation in that region. One is nanotechnology, the acceleration and the incubation of startups based in nanotechnology, and that's due to the fact that we have one of a great Institute for Nanotechnology, International Institute for Nanotechnology.
Yes.
The second area is medical technologies. We have probably one of the best ecosystems in Portugal for medical technologies and digital health, because we have the university, which is a university that is very focused on engineering for medical, and not only to train physicians. We also have in this ecosystem the hospital, which is part of Grupo Melo, one of the largest hospitals that can not only assess the validity of the idea from a medical perspective, but also from an hospital and from a perspective. And then we have the Clinical Trial Center, which does probably around 30% of the clinical trials done in Portugal. So we put this ecosystem together, and we are now putting a lot of effort in medical technologies, nanotechnologies. We were born in mobile and IT due to the reputation of the university also in these areas.
Yeah.
But we are now progressing to these new areas where we are trying really to help the entrepreneurs to test, try, and do two things that for our culture are very, sometimes very unnatural. One is to fail fast, or to continue to try to develop the idea if it has traction.
We'll come back to the fails fast later. You must be very busy in Braga because apparently it's one of the youngest cities in Europe. Is it
Correct.
true?
Yes, around 46% of population of the region is below 30, which is an opportunity.
It's a very good thing for you.
Yeah.
Yes. David, over to you. You from Gast, and you work with a few interesting municipalities to help them develop an ecosystem. Cities like New York, London, Boston.
That's right, yeah.
What are some insights from your work with these cities?
Sure. So, I mean, I think the first kind of major challenge that we're trying to solve is basically being able to bring everyone together inside an ecosystem. So, namely, that's bringing in government, entrepreneurs, and private companies, private corporates, all together so that they're able to kind of connect and be able to sort of see where they can help each other. I think that's kind of a major kind of issue, particularly in busy cities like New York and London, which, whilst there's quite a lot of finance available, it's maybe this kind of connection and kind of organization where that can help. So what we did is we started this in New York and then followed that with London. We made kind of relationships with the mayors of those cities. We tried to identify all the kind of key players and kind of map out the startup ecosystem of that city and then bring everything into an online hub. So as I said, we've produced 3 of those so far. That kind of brings together everything, so sort of all the startups, all the investors, accelerators, any courses going on. With the data from that, we can provide that to the mayors of the cities so that they can kind of work out where sort of shortcomings are, whether they can devote resources and support. As well as that, we've received private backing on that, the first 3 cities from IBM, so it's been a great opportunity for them as well to establish better relationships with entrepreneurs and get inside the ecosystems.
So from the insights you had, are there any interesting numbers which you think might be useful to understand around these local ecosystems?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that we've, for example, in London that we've noticed is that we've got a huge push of sort of, particularly around kind of courses, for example, that people are looking for. So it's a good way to see how people are trying to get themselves into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been able to see a big trend of, say, like kind of business-related people taking coding courses. That's something we've seen a huge rise in. That's something that we can kind of alert to like the Mayor of London, for example, and they can help to make things like that more accessible. So that's just a kind of micro example of one of the things we can see from there.
Yeah. I would like to ask all of you, what do you think, I'm sure all of you travel a lot. You've been all around the world in different building cities, countries. You've seen many people try and some of them fail. What do you think are the biggest common mistakes of ecosystems not implemented well? Any examples you've seen during your travels?
I think I'll take a stab if you don't mind. I think a lot of ecosystems try to replicate Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And you know, Silicon Valley has a lot to learn from, but it's going to be very hard for any city to become Silicon Valley anytime soon. It's been talked about ad nauseum, so you know, no need to re-mention that they had 60 years of advantage and you know, billions in investment from DARPA and other government organizations to attract engineers and smart people to the region. But I think that actually the flip side of it is not so much a mistake, but what startup hubs should do is really find their local flavor and their local strength. So I like what you said about Braga and how you're leveraging some of the like nanotechnology infrastructure and hospital infrastructure. Because at the end of the day, clusters are not made of buildings, they're made of people. Yeah. So you can have, when I was the head of campus in London, I used to have mayors contact me and say like, hey, just here's a building, take the municipality building, let's put a campus logo on it. And that's not how it works. You know, at the end of the day, it's not about the physical space, it's about the people and the programs. So The other thing startup hubs can do to really progress and develop is to pick the issues that they really care about. So at campus, we selected some of these issues, but they included, for example, women in startups and women equality and education, older people getting into the startup ecosystem. So part of it is because it reflects the values of Google and what Google wants to do, but the other thing is actually putting resources and people into making progress in those areas. So whether it's mentorship programs, events, the ability for startups in those sectors to showcase and develop, I think it's really important to select what you care about and then do something about it, rather than let things just develop organically.
Just for the audience, Campus has this program called Campus for Moms. Moms come and code and build their companies at campus. How cool is that, right? Carlos, in your experience, any big mistakes you see over and over in other ecosystems to try to do something which doesn't work?
Yeah, I think that reiterating what Izzy just said, I think that number one is trying to replicate other ecosystems. There are no recipes. I think that we can learn a lot from, and that's when I was in government, what I did, and I think that everyone still do, is to look at what is happening in the world, try to get a bit here, a bit there, go to Israel, see what's going on in Berlin, in London, in Silicon Valley, and then try to make what makes sense for us, taking advantage of our specificities and from our potential additional value that we can create. So I think that's one mistake. The other mistake is that many times we see people that have not been entrepreneurs trying to teach entrepreneurs what they should do. And I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes, is people that have not been there, haven't felt what it takes to build a company, to be successful, or to have a failure, to explain to others how they should behave, what they should do. That's I think, one of the most concerning things that I've been seeing in many places, which is people that have done an academic research or an MBA, which has nothing bad, but being the leaders of some of this momentum that is created. So I think that is very important, all these to be sustainable from a theoretical perspective, but then the practical part, who's done this, it's fundamental. So I would say that for me the most important thing is for entrepreneurs to surround themselves from people that have done it, with success or with failure, so that they can, at least, again, there are no recipes, but at least they can learn the mistakes that those people have done and try not to replicate them in their own startups. So,
and how can you bring those exited successful entrepreneurs back into the country? Because I imagine many of them will go to San Francisco and want to stay there. What is the best way to bring them back or have some connection with the local hub?
My belief is that those entrepreneurs that go abroad to be successful because it's easier to get funding or it's easier to grow faster, they are doing the right thing. And they will always come back for different reasons. One of the reasons is that we have great engineering skills and great productivity here in Portugal. So many of them and the Portuguese companies that are being successful abroad, their R&D is done here in Portugal. Because it's great, it's very reliable. Myself, I've got my experience. When I sold my company to Microsoft, my engineers were on the top tiers at Microsoft at a global level, which means that really we have great talent here. And I think that's what the country has to offer, not only to Portuguese entrepreneurs, but also in a moment where there's a scarcity of resources, human resources and talent in development. Portugal certainly has that, but still has availability, and that's why many larger companies and many startups are creating, not only in Lisbon, but in Braga and Porto and in other cities, their R&D centers and leveraging from that. So I think that that part is a great part where we have a great of value to add. Other parts we need to grow in go-to-market strategies, growth hacking, digital media. There are things that we need to learn and to. We have the assets here, we have the brains. What we need is to have more cases of success, so more companies that really grow very fast in having an app that goes to hundreds of millions of users, so that then this kind of knowledge can be spread across other startups in the country. So my challenge here is that for the Portuguese entrepreneurs, but as well for the foreign entrepreneurs and investors, if you really put some people in these areas where we have less expertise because we haven't done it yet. If we put people here, this will be faster, very faster way to have more people knowing about all those disciplines that are key for the success of startups. And then you can even have this done from a beautiful country, like you've seen here in Lisbon, but the rest of the country, if you haven't visited, I can tell you that is as great as Lisbon.
Looking forward to see that, yeah.
There's a great book by Brad Feld from Foundry Group called Startup Communities. Well, I don't know if it's a great book, but it's an interesting book about this question, and it gives the case study of Boulder, Colorado, which is a tiny place, but thriving startup ecosystem, and he puts there the recipe that worked for Boulder. So if you're trying to steer your startup ecosystem in your city, I recommend reading it.
Yeah. How many of you in the audience have been to Boulder in Colorado? Anybody been there? There's a few. So Boulder is a city of 100,000 people, and it's a global headquarters of Techstars, one of the world's largest accelerators. And these guys just built a world-class company in a small city like that, and it's full of entrepreneurship. And they also got the whole city to back them, to really hold their back, which is quite amazing. As you say, it's not just the building, it's the people in there and getting the support. We have 5 minutes to finish the discussion and go for the Q&A. So please start thinking about good questions which you want to ask our speakers here. David, from your perspective as somebody from outside of Portugal, how do you think will the announcement of the Web Summit coming to Lisbon influence the ecosystem in Portugal?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think kind of one of the things that I would add to what the other two have just been saying is in an ecosystem, what's really important, one is to specialize, as we've discussed, but the other thing is to be able to go global and as quickly as possible. So that's something that I've kind of noticed in a bunch of cities where they're not, like, that's, as an example, I've seen in Barcelona, for example, where, the entrepreneurs there are not afraid to go, once they've had a bit of success, to go straight off to the US, for example, to gain more markets. So what something like Web Summit can do here in Lisbon, it enables companies here to internationalize very quickly. So they're going to be in the kind of international spotlight. They're going to have all the kind of top investors and top accelerators, for example, from around the world coming into the city. It's a great place for them to be seen. As well as that, there's also all the other companies coming in from the rest of Europe. So it's a real way to put not just for Lisbon, for each entrepreneur here to be able to internationalize.
Okay. There was one thing which I experienced last year. I attended this talk with Norman Foster. He's known to be one of the world's best architects. And you might know that the new HQ of Apple, he designed in collaboration with Steve Jobs. And there was a Q&A section. And there's a question which he was asked, and this is, what do you think was the most important thing for Steve Jobs when you designed together this building of Apple? And he thought of maybe for 1 minute, and then his answer was random collaboration. Carlos, in Braga, which is a small city as well, but it seems to be very lively and thriving with as an ecosystem. Did you notice anything around some tips how to improve the random collaboration of people in an ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's the random collaboration, or in other, saying it in a different way, the intersection of different disciplines to create innovation. I think it's really what makes the difference. And I think that for the entrepreneurs, what they need to have in mind, in many cases, that technology is just an enabler to solve a problem. And if we use the technology the right way, we'll be able to solve the right problem. So trying to get people, and that's one of the things that we are trying to do here in Portugal, is to go from a model where engineers started to be the early adopters in terms of being the first entrepreneurs in this tech community, to have teams that are composed not only by engineers, but as well with people from other areas, from psychology, that have probably a great opportunity to improve the user experience of products and other areas. So we are trying to do it. It takes time. it's not an easy thing because sometimes the language that we are using when we are engineers and tech entrepreneurs with people from other areas is a very close language. But I think that the key principle is this: technology is today and will be more and more, in my perspective, just an enabler for great things that will solve both problems to people as end users or to companies. But I don't think that anyone is anymore buying bits and bytes. People are buying experiences, solutions, and that's why engineers need to feel that they are important. But the strategies to go to market, to reach those customers, to have the right user experience will be key for the success of their startups or their endeavors.
Yes, that's very true.
You have a question over there.
We have 1 minute for questions. Give us some time. I have one more question to ask Easy, because Easy, to wrap this conversation, you're building a community. Your next venture is called Tech Bikers, and it's not just, it started in London, right? And now you're rolling it out to other places in the world. How do you do it? And what is your plan?
So it's not my next venture because I actually started it 5 years ago. But
there you go.
Tech Bikers is a collaboration of the tech community. It's a non-profit, and it brings together entrepreneurs, investors, and techies around long-distance cycling challenges to raise money for kids' education in the developing world. So it's the 5th year so far. We've created 5 schools, 10 libraries, and 3,000 scholarships for girls in Nepal, India, Cambodia, and Bangladesh. And the answer of how it happens, it's really a miracle every time, but sponsors from the industry come and help us cover the costs, and then the riders sign up for the challenge and fundraise for this cause. But it starts with essentially the nodes. It starts with the connected people who want to make a difference, who believe in taking a challenge and doing something that's greater than themselves. There's no money in it for anyone apart from the kids in the poorest countries in the world that it really does make a difference for them. So I just came back from Nepal, and I've seen firsthand a school that was completely demolished by the earthquake, and that we're helping rebuild. You know, we may not solve poverty, but we're going to make a real difference in the lives of these kids. So now, for the first time, we're scaling Tech Bikers internationally. So we're heading from Paris to London in June, Poznan to Berlin in July, Budapest to Vienna, or Vienna to Budapest in September, then Madrid to Valencia in October, and Napa to San Francisco at the end of October. I hope that if someone here wants to organize Tech Bikers Lisbon, I tried to do it, but it's just too far from Spain, so I didn't know where to ride from. If anyone wanted to do it, I call you to pick up the glove and just take the initiative.
So you're going to have a busy summer. 1 or 2 quick questions. There you go.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I'd just like to have your opinion about the possibility of collaboration with Makerspace. How is that important for ecosystem? Is it really important, or is it something that is glorified too much and maybe it's not that important?
Who wants to take it?
Makerspace.
Yeah, I can just maybe start. I think that the Makers initiative or momentum is a great opportunity to create the early adopters of entrepreneurship. So if we do it on schools, if we do it early, it's a great way to bring people that are not yet to be entrepreneurs in the sense that they are creating their own companies, but it's a great way to evangelize people for this opportunity. Of course, the Makers movement can have other opportunities, and now when we talk about all the opportunities on the do-it-yourself world, on the 3D printing, all the opportunities and the business that will arise from all of these, also the connection with robotics and robotics with intelligent agents or intelligent intellects, as someone recently named them. I think it's a great opportunity to have minds, and again, doing this intersection between different disciplines. So I think it's important. The government this week announced that they are really betting also in Fab Labs, in Makerspace again. So I think it's a good opportunity for the country as well.
So 1 more question. Andre?
Oh, hello. Good morning. Thank you all for coming and sharing this experience. I also running the startup grant chapter here in Lisbon recently, and I would like to ask you, Carlos, what's your opinion about the impact of co-work space here in Portugal and what your vision about the next years. Because this co-work space has lots of hubs, lots of incubators and companies inside it trying to work together. But seems to have a little lack or no good communication yet between them. And in your opinion, and if the other guys can offer more opinions, which are the next steps to put us more integrated and work more together to improve our hubs and our co-work space to put more people to work together?
Sorry, in what space?
Co-work spaces, because we have seen a booming
space,
co-work
yeah.
spaces here. It's a good movement.
Sorry.
So the question is,
co-work.
what is the next steps to
Co-working
space,
space. Yeah, okay. Again, as it was said before, my belief, and I think it was easy, these hubs are not about the building. The building is, I would say, again, as an enabler, and as good as it is and as better as it is, of course, the great things it can improve in the ecosystem. But again, the point that you are making is the important point. How do people, because this is all about people, how do people connect? How do people take advantage in the early stage? Because I believe that incubators and accelerators have an important thing to do in the early days, but then the co-working spaces and other areas will be where the startups then co-locate or locate in the future. So again, I think that initiatives like these, initiatives like the one that the government now launched in terms of a national network of incubators and accelerators will allow these different initiatives spreading all around the country to be more connected. And again, my point is always about this, how can we differentiate? I was just telling Marian in the beginning, I don't believe that we all can play, if we are playing football, in the same place in the field, in the soccer field. So we need to find our specificities and where we can add value. That then makes more easier for people to have a conversation. If we're all playing in the same place, we all want the ball at the same time. So if we spread in the field, and I think that one of the developments that is occurring here in Portugal is exactly that. I think that there's an increase on the specialization of some accelerators, incubators, which is making those conversations much easier. But I'm with you. I think that this is all about people and how people interact, and I think that we are in a good pace and with a good momentum to achieve very good results.
So, and on this note, it's all about people. Please join me in thanking Carlos, David, and Easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. You are so efficient. Thank you so much.